Today we're talking spirituality and using mouth tape at night to sleep. Are they connected? I don't know. We'll see. Welcome back to Human to Human. My name is Jess, and we got another Q&A episode for you. Honestly, my faves. If you want to submit a question anonymously, go to humantohumanpod.com/podcast, scroll to the bottom, and there is a form. You can submit absolutely anything you want me to talk about, questions you have that you want me to answer. You want to tell me a story? You want to confess something going on in your life? Please do. I would love to hear. So the first question is coming from Instagram. I posted a reel of me right when I was going to bed, bonnet on, mouth tape on, but I got inspired to write and work on my book a little bit more. And so I took a video being like, inspo strikes when inspo strikes kind of thing. And someone responded and was like, what's up with the mouth tape? Can you tell us more? So sure, I'll tell you more here. Not that recently, it's been a while that I've been using mouth tape at night, but I am someone who has struggled for the past few years with tight jaw issues, TMJ, clenching at night. I wear a night guard at night, but I also, about a year ago, crazy, oh my God, has my skin been in remission for maybe not for a full year, but probably a good 6 months. I've had some good skin, so obsessed. But I struggled with a lot of acne during a lot of 2025. And so I kind of was starting to get creative on what could be causing this acne? Why do I have all this acne? I was having cheek acne, but then I was having a lot of chin acne. And I had this phase where I would wake up in the morning and there would be drool just all over my mouth. And it's kind of gross, but I think I was sleeping with my mouth absolutely hanging wide open, and I need to keep wiping the spit, the drool, nasty, off of my face. And so I was like, okay, that can't be good for my skin, because all the toxins, in my saliva, in my mouth, that's coming out and sitting on my skin, that's probably not good. So that was the push for me to be I think I'm going to try using mouth tape. It was slowly starting to become a thing. And I also have a lot of tight jaw issues. And I was seeing things on Instagram about it being better to breathe through your nose and not through your mouth. And when we hang our mouth wide open, when we sleep, we breathe through our mouth. So I started to try out mouth tapes, and I was trying one that was literally just surgical tape, and it did not work. I would rip it off in the middle of the night all the time. It was not comfortable. It was painful. Anyway, so in the summer, one of my neighbors at the cottage, we started talking about mouth tape for some reason. And he was like, I use mouth tape because I snore really bad and it's changed my life. And he let me try one of his mouth tapes, and they're pretty expensive. I forget the name of the brand he was using, but I discovered it was incredible. It was this black sort of stretchy material that didn't because he has a beard. He's it doesn't rip at my beard. It stays on all night. So then I started to kind of play around with different brands. I was going on Amazon, seeing what was available. And I have found a brand on Amazon that has been working so well for me. And not only because it has that stretchy material with the black sort of how would you call it? Let me find the info here. So the one that I use, it's a weird name, Alrion, Alrion premium tape. It's about $20 for a 30 pack. And it just says hypoallergenic, comfortable, gentle on skin. But the best thing I like about it is that it has a little slit in the center. So a lot of times I think I would take my mouth tape off because I would be trying to breathe through my mouth and it wouldn't work. And then I would just rip it off and get frustrated. And so this allows, I think, if I want to breathe a little bit through my mouth, I can. And 9 times out of 10, it works really well. I find most nights I wake up in the morning, I haven't ripped it off. Except if you get sick and you have a cold and you can't breathe out of your nose, don't wear mouth tape. I was wearing my mouth tape for a few nights in a row when my cold was really, really bad a couple weeks ago. And I kept waking up in the night Why? Probably because I couldn't fucking breathe. But I found it really helps with my jaw issues too. When I wouldn't sleep with my mouth tape, my jaw would hurt way more in the morning. And so I'm a mouth tape girl now. I'm into it. And so when I sleep with my boyfriend too, it's like he knows it's bedtime when that mouth tape goes on. It's like bonnet on, night guard in on the top, retainer in on the bottom to keep my bottom teeth from moving from my braces that I had, mouth tape on. Let's effing go. So that's a little bit about why I use mouth tape, and my skin's been really great, and there's not drool all over my face. However, in the winter, I've been finding lately it gets really dry all around my mouth, and I think probably because there ends up being a lot of like moisture in there, because I think my mouth still tries to drool, but the tape kind of like catches it. So there's no perfect solutions, and you know that if you listened to last week's episode about period products. So the second question I'm excited to get into, which is the main focus of the episode today, is someone submitted a question via my website saying, I'm someone who isn't super religious, but I would like to lean more into my spirituality. Do you have any tips, any advice, etc.? So yes. And that is something like I feel so connected to this question because I'm someone who was not raised religious. I was not baptized. I also heard like quite a bit of negative energy around religion just from like one specific family member that I was close with growing up. And my parents don't talk too negatively. Actually, no, my parents do talk negatively about religion a little bit, sometimes more in like a joking fashion, less so now, but more when we were like young growing up. However, like my mom's side of the family is still like religious in the sense that like if there's a wedding or a funeral, like there's either a reverend or a pastor or a priest being the person to like be the speaker at it. And there's like prayers and that kind of stuff. I don't know a lot about religion, but as I've kind of grown up and experienced different types of death and losses and connected more with myself and what I believe in and kind of figuring out who I am versus what my family is, I've found that I am a spiritual person and I do love leaning into my spirituality. And it was just recently when my grandma passed that I was like, I am going to be more unapologetic about my spirituality because I found that like I would be really quiet about it, or I felt really awkward about it, or I didn't want to make people feel uncomfortable, or I felt like I was being silly, or it felt very, very vulnerable to be like vocally spiritual and passionate and, you know, just believing in something bigger than myself. And I've talked a little bit about this like years ago on the podcast, but it's really changed, I think, just in the sense that like I'm now encouraging myself to step into being a little bit more unapologetic about it and a little bit more like open and vocal about it because it feels good and it's what I believe. And I'm really working in therapy on allowing myself to be confident in what I believe and who I am and be outspoken in that without constantly worrying about other people's feelings and if that's going to hurt someone or if that's going to make someone uncomfortable. Because that's what goes through my head a lot of the time without me even knowing. I thought I was like, I am living my life all good. When my boyfriend talks about caring what other people think, I'm like, stop it, Josh. Like, who cares about what other people think? But it turns out I do. Turns out I do a lot. And I think also growing up, having people talk negatively about religion made me feel like embarrassed about believing in things like that. And my partner is raised Christian and he is religious and he's not like go to church every Sunday religious, but he actually really does enjoy going to church and he will go to church by himself a lot. He'll go to church with his family. And it's funny because like younger Jess is like consider someone like so religious if they go to church every Sunday. But now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm like, Josh does go to church often. And like, I don't have that like negative view. It was always in the sense of like people who go to church, like crazy. But now I'm like, no, like he knows that like I struggle going to church because I find like half of me is like wanting to like be like, yes, I'm in this. I love this. What a beautiful way to be a part of a community. What a fantastic thing to do. All sit together and pray and be intentional. But then the other half of me is like struggles so much about like all the crazy things that can come with religion, all the negative things sometimes, not always supporting everyone's rights. So I struggle with churches. Sometimes I'm like, I wasn't going to say always open. I am fairly open to like going and experiencing, different church moments, but maybe like once every 6 months, to be totally honest. Like last time I went was probably 6 months ago, maybe even more, that I went with Josh, and it was like a mega church, and I was like, I can't. Also, like, it depends what they're saying, it depends what the person on stage is saying, and sometimes I'm like, yes, and sometimes I'm like, wow, there's so much wrong with what you're saying. So in terms of a religious sense, I struggle, and I think that's okay, and I'm comfortable with that, and like my boyfriend's comfortable with me with that, and like what's important to him and his family is that I am open to going and believing in something, and that is what I am. So I love that. However, for myself, I think it's been really important to see like how I can lean into my own spirituality and what that feels like and what that means and what I feel comfortable talking about it. And I think allowing, if I was going to give like a tip or advice on this, is just allowing yourself to not like censor yourself when you're alone with yourself, if that makes sense. I said yourself so many times, but like being by myself, like that's when I feel like I can lean into my spirituality the most. And like also just kind of being honest with like when I feel like there's a sign from the universe or and also my thoughts aren't that collected about this, but I think that's the fun part about these Q&A episodes is that it's kind of like off the cuff. I think it's important to be comfortable with the words that resonate the most with you. I was raised like with God just like not being a normal term in our family. And so God feels a little bit more uncomfortable for me versus I love saying the universe. And the universe feels like so, I just feel so connected to that use of the word because it's like, to me, that's not just this God being or like that being tied to Jesus Christ and like that whole Bible story, like that doesn't resonate with me. But when I think about like the earth and nature and the power of like things being bigger than yourself, and like when you go into nature and things are like just, they take your breath away, you're in awe, those moments to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is something so much bigger than myself. To me, I feel like it's so much bigger than just like the human mind. And I find that the more I lean into that and the more I trust the timing of the universe and I trust where I'm meant to go and what is meant to happen, the better I feel. And I think that's for me why I like being spiritual and why I like leaning into it is because I actually feel better and find I have less anxiety when I say I am comfortable giving up all my control, not giving up all my control. I'm comfortable giving up some of my control to just trust that what is meant to be will be. And that's more what it's about for me. What is meant to be will be. And knowing that I've done my part, I am actively doing my part to show the universe what I want, what I'm interested in, what I care about. I'm taking the actions, I'm taking the steps. And so things that we can try to control, for example, I don't know, how many followers on Instagram I have, my podcast being successful, my book ending up being a bestseller. Those things I have some control over, but at the end of the day, there's something magical in it. There's something bigger than me. So I can put in the work, but at the end of the day, I can't force people to one day buy my book. I can't force people to listen to my podcast. And I don't want that. I want to attract people to this space I'm creating who will resonate and who are interested and who will feel validated. And so to me, that feels bigger than myself. And that feels like I need to trust something outside myself in order to allow that to come to fruition. And what's been really helping me in the past few months with my spirituality is also calling out signs from the universe that I feel and that make me, really happy and feel connected. So the day after my grandma's funeral, I was in the last few days at the Airbnb Josh and I were staying in, and him and I had a really great chat that night just about, it was crazy. It's like this had happened that week, but we were also reflecting on the whole 5 weeks we'd spent in our Airbnb. And one of the things we really wanted to do was have more intentional mornings where I worked on my book, Josh worked on music, because those are the things that feel like our life's mission, if you will. Cringe. See? No, it's not. Just I'm like, vulnerable. So we woke up early and I really didn't want to get out of bed, but he really encouraged me to get out of bed. I was so tired that morning. And when I came into our kitchen, there was the most beautiful sunrise I've seen ever in a really long time. And I haven't seen a sunrise, honestly, in forever, let alone one that beautiful. And I didn't even know we saw sunrises in our place. Josh was like, why did we not start waking up earlier sooner? We could have had sunrises this whole time, but I don't think it was like that. The rest of the day ended up being crazy snowy and overcast. But yet that morning we had this beautiful sunrise. And it was the day after my brother and I especially, like, and my dad and my aunt and my mom, like, we all just like honored my grandma that day before. We gave beautiful speeches in her honor. We all came together as a family to celebrate her, to mourn the loss. And the next morning we had that stunning sunrise. And I was just like, that's my grandma. That's my grandma. And you could say it's just a sunrise, but to me, that was my grandma. To me, that was my grandma saying, thank you for honoring me. I see you. I love you. You know, it's emotional. And I think in the past, I wouldn't have said that to anyone. But that morning, I took a video of the sunrise. I sent it to my mom and my aunt. And I said, I don't even remember what I said, but I just said, like, Grandma made a beautiful sunrise for us this morning. And I believe that because I believe that, like, we are so connected to the earth. We are so connected to Mother Nature. And that is a sign. And that's a way you can show someone you love them and that you're still here. And I actually felt insecure later because I was like, oh, like, ugh, do they believe that? Was that weird that I sent that to them? But my mom told me later that day, she's like, it made me cry when you sent that. And that made me feel really good because that's also me sharing my spirituality with her. And also, like, being a permission giver that, like, you can believe that, you can see signs. And my mom's also been that for me so much of my life, where she'll see hummingbirds and that's a sign, or, you know, butterflies, or just, you know, different things like that. And I think the more I live my life in connection with signs from something bigger than myself, the more I find I can listen to my body. So, like, what's required for me being connected to signs from the universe is feeling grounded, feeling present, noticing my breath, being enough in the moment to see a sign, notice how funny that was in that moment, register it, and say thank you too. And I think I'm going to share this. We don't know yet what's happening, but obviously from me talking on the podcast, you'll probably be able to tell Josh and I absolutely loved living together. We had such an incredible time, and it has been just such a cool moment of, you know, it was unintentionally a trial live-in together. And so we are now looking at places to rent together to move in. And it's crazy because people have asked me for so long, are you going to move in with Josh? When are you going to move in with Josh? Are you going to move in with Josh? Why don't you and Josh live together yet? And it's like, we're on our own timing. We're on our own path. And we were so meant to get that Airbnb and just feel it out before making this big decision. And who knows if we're even going to make this decision right now, because we are so deeply just not in a rush and allowing ourselves to trust the process. And our real estate guy is like so not like that. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, is this the right real estate guy for us? Because he's just like stressed and running around. And he's like, you guys just like don't have a plan B right now. So I'm nervous you won't get plan A. And I'm like, dude, plan B is like stay exactly where we are. And we're chilling right now, saving money in our parents' homes. But through this process, we've looked at a few places, and it was crazy because the first place we saw, the guy who lives there left a note saying, hey, potential renters, you know, I'm obsessed with this place. The only reason I'm moving is because I'm moving in with my partner down the road. Love the neighborhood, love the landlords, love the sunrises. This was the day after I saw that sunrise. And, you know, blah, 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 signed his name. And I was like, wow, okay, that's really cool. And then right after that, I see this bag on his desk that says Cacao Boys. And I'm like, what? That's weird. Cacao Boys, I'm pretty sure, is a chocolate store only in Muskoka, very close to where my parents have a cottage. And I'm like, okay, that felt like a sign. And we really liked the place. We looked around and we kind of like felt it out. And we just like both, Josh and I kind of kept looking to each other with big eyes. And we're like, okay, whoa, this is a vibe. And so we were like, okay, we like this place. And then we went to see a couple others and we didn't like the other ones. The fourth one, we were like, we kind of like it. But afterwards, Josh and I were like, this whole process, we are staying connected to our gut instinct. We are not convincing ourselves or talking ourselves into a place because we're not in a rush. And I have lived in places where I haven't been obsessed with it. And so it's really hard to know too, the first time you see a place. So we decided to go see it for a second time. And we just saw it yesterday for a second time. And it felt good again. But before we did, actually, this is what I'm so proud of us for. I felt really anxious yesterday. I felt like my energy was chaotic yesterday. I've just moved back in with my parents' house. It's just like a transition again. And like, I've just been feeling a little bit like all over the place and etc. So we're in the car. We're super early because Jess likes to be early to everything. And I don't like to get stuck in downtown Toronto traffic if I don't have to. So we parked on a little side street. And we were talking through everything. We were talking to ChatGPT and we're like, what do we need to know? What do we need to ask? What do we need to make sure is great? Blah, blah, blah. And the energy kept getting more and more chaotic. And I was like, okay, Josh, like put my fucking phone away. Let's just chill for a second. I said, I think we just need to like do a little breath work. And I'm so happy because I use the Othership breathwork app and there's been guides who have released new breathwork tracks and they're people that I actually work with. And it's just, they're so good. They're so, especially just like knowing these people, it's just so awesome. So I've been doing those more often and favoriting the ones I like the most and going into, so anyway, we're sitting in my car and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go into my favorites. And then I'm like, Erin's 4-minute box breath. Perfect. I put on Erin's box breath and I love Erin. She's incredible. She has left Othership, but she's just like such an amazing mentor for so many of us in our journey. So we do the breath work. And before we do the breath work, Josh was like, I want us to pray. And so sometimes we'll pray together. Sometimes we'll pray before bed, but I struggle with it, to be honest. It's really vulnerable for me to pray out loud. So we do the breath work. We haven't prayed. It feels really, really good. And then we like sit in silence for a little bit. And in my mind, I said a few things of intentions for me of just like being connected to my body, asking the universe to throw the doors wide open or slam them shut. Know that we are in no rush. We are good with the yes. We're good with the no. We just want to see we want to see this place for a second time and just really feel if this is meant to be ours. And knowing that just, I feel like the second time we see it, we'll just know more. And so I kind of like say a little intention in my mind. And then Josh and I look at each other and I'm like, okay, like I'm good. And he's like, do you want to pray? And I'm like, well, I just did it in my mind. And then he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, well, we can do it out loud. So we like hold hands and I'm cringing. Like when I say this out loud, like my younger self, like, I don't know, like it's so weird to me. Like I just did not grow up praying. Josh did, which I love. And like, I just feel like my family would judge me for this. And that's why it's kind of like hard to like even say this out loud. But I'm saying this because it's like, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to evolve with what you believe in. And this is something, setting a prayer to me is the same thing as setting an intention or like asking for help. And so that's just what I'm going to call it instead of maybe a prayer. And so anyway, out loud, we close our eyes and I just start talking. And I just love when it happens organically. And everything I basically said to myself in my mind, I said out loud. And then usually when we've done prayers together before, each of us will say something. But Josh was like, that was amazing. Let's do this. And thank God we did, because our landlord, or not our landlord, our like real estate guy who shows us places is so hyper and wound up, and he doesn't stop talking and he doesn't stop following us around the apartment. So it's really hard because I was just trying to listen to my body while I was there, and he's just like, why are you here for a second visit? And whatever. But at one point I was like, Josh, go over there. I'm going to go into the bedroom. I'm going to close the door and see if I can like comfortably feel like I'm enjoying this space. I laid on the floor to be like, do I have enough space to do yoga? I did the same thing in the living room. Whatever. And Josh and I walked away from that place being like, okay, we're going to submit an application. If we get it, great. If we don't, then it wasn't meant to be. And I said that earlier to our landlord guy or our real estate guy, whatever. And he was like, oh, I wish I could think about life that way. Oh my God. Ah. And that's the difference, I think, of knowing there's something bigger looking out for you versus thinking everything in the world falls on your shoulders and is in your hands. I think when you think it's all up to you, there's stress to that, there's anxiety to that, and then you're you're our homeboy running around like a crazy person. And granted, I want to give him some grace. His whole job is commission based. Like, that's stressful. And a lot of real estate people make good money off of sales because they rush someone into it, give them fear that this is going to go fast. And then they because they're scared, get it quickly. It's happened to me before. So anywho, I think when you allow yourself to believe that what is meant for you is meant for you, you can have this non-attachment. And that's sort of where Josh and I are leaning into, and it's feeling so good. And then right before we leave this place, I see a little bracelet on his not his nightstand, on his like a little shoe rack he has, but like right by the entryway at the door, and it says Muskoka. And I'm like, I think I'd get along with this Noah guy who's lived here for a year. And even before this, Josh and I were early, and so we were waiting for our homeboy, and there was a woman who stopped in the area between like entering the building and keying yourself in. And she was taking a while to find her keys. And Josh wanted me to be like, so do you like living in the building? And I was not having it. And so he did it. And she's like, I'm obsessed. I've lived here for a year and a half. I couldn't picture another neighborhood. She's like, what do you guys do for work? And I told her I work at Othership. And she's like, I was literally there earlier today. And so like, there's so many things that are feeling aligned about this place. And I think it's so awesome to open your eyes and your ears to those things through the process. Because if we get this place, I feel confident we are meant to have this place. If we don't, I'll be a little surprised and be like, okay, it's not our place yet, and that's okay. And we're not in a rush, and we're allowed to be picky. So that's a little bit about what's going on, and I hope those were good examples of just like the way I bring my spirituality into my everyday life. Because yes, I also make sure I keep practices alive and well in my day-to-day life. Like doing yoga helps me feel connected to my spirituality, and spending time alone and listening to my body, and sometimes writing or sometimes like reading, those things absolutely help me stay connected. But like those practices, I actually don't think are the most effective ways to feel spiritual for me. It's the integration of it in my day-to-day life, and then the permission to actually say these things out loud more often. So that's what's going on for me. Send good vibes. I'll keep you posted if we end up getting it. All good if we don't. And I say that as I literally just checked my iMessages being like, did he answer yet? Do we know yet? I'm so eager. Anywho, exciting stuff and big steps, and knowing that everywhere we've been has gotten us to where we are now, and it will take us to where we're meant to go. Wow, poetic, Jess. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to someone. It would mean so much to continue just sharing the love of the Human to Human podcast. If you have a question or just want to tell me something and have it shared on the pod, humantohumanpod.com/podcast. And I will see you next week for a new episode. Also, send good vibes to Josh, because when this episode's live, he is fresh, recovering from his ACL surgery. Bless him. Okay, bye.